I blew up my art way too big and I gotta fix it. You see all those little pixels? All of that texture close up. It wasn't what I was expecting. So we're gonna do something about it. Stick around and see what metamorphosis I went through. Have you ever printed one of your paintings on canvas only to realize something was off? That is what happened to me with this piece. What worked beautifully as a small oil painting turned into a texture disaster at full size. But instead of tossing it out, I turned it into something completely new. And today I'll take you behind the scenes of my process, how I transformed a failed print into a bold, textured, mixed media piece. So if you have ever struggled with paintings gone wrong, then stay with me because this might just inspire your next creative experiment. All right, here's the unexpected problem. Let's start with the issue. When I first created the original oil painting, it was small. It was a 5x7 on canvas, and I loved how the brush strokes and the details kind of came together. So I decided to print it on a larger canvas piece. And the reason I did that was because it was 93% off over the holidays. Okay, so I was like, well, I'm going to get a couple of them and test this out. This was a new company that I was working with. So I got them in, and when I saw it in full size, yeah, it just wasn't quite what I had imagined. And I really should have known better. The texture from the original brush strokes got really stretched, and the texture of the canvas itself really showed, not so much in the mini painting, but when you blow that up, it looked really off. It was like pixels everywhere. All I could see was the texture of the canvas because it got so large. Now, if I had done that on a larger canvas and either made the same size or if I shrunk it down, it would even look better. Now, this was oil. I've done this before with watercolor and I haven't really had much of an issue because you don't see the texture of the watercolor paper quite as much when you've painted on it. But because I did not use a lot of thick impressionistic, or what do you say? How do you say it? I think it's impasto painting style where it's really, really thick. You could see all of the little texture of the canvas itself. So here is a close-up of the texture. You can see the comparison from an original painting, and look how big they got. It's like if you blew up your pores on your face, right? You're like, I have a pimple, and then you just like zoom in on it, and it was like, boom, there it was. Not a good look. So before I could start painting over it, I needed to prepare the surface. So I thought, I'm not going to let this go to waste. We're going to do something with this. So since it was a canvas print, I thought I would do a traditional watercolor over it. So I used watercolor ground. And if you're not familiar with that, it's a thick, very absorbent, kind of a paint-on, non-traditional surfaces thing. And I applied it with an even coat and I let it fully dry. I probably could have gone a second coat on there because I could see still some of the texture through there. But because this was experimental, I was like, I'm not going to bother with a second coat on here. We're going to work with it. So I did this painting in watercolor. And it was really pretty. I did some salt work on it and it was like, it just wasn't feeling it. I don't know if it was because I knew what was underneath it. I just let it sit on my easel for a month and I walked away for a whole month. Yep. Sometimes the best thing you can do for a piece is just kind of let it sit, let it simmer, create some new ideas and step back. So when I finally did come back, I actually didn't have a vision in mind. It was like I needed my easel back. It's really what the true story is. I was doing a live for my patrons and I was doing a full sheet watercolor and I needed to have my easel back. So I took it off the easel, stuck it in the corner, and then it was in my way. So I picked it up. Now for the fun part, the painting process, the new painting process, because what I had before just wasn't feeling it. I pulled out my oil sticks. Now, this is something I don't work with often. I've only done it a couple of times in the past. So I've only used my oil sticks a few times. So I haven't used oil sticks a whole lot. I am or have worked on a magnolia, which was kind of a loose painting. I've done that with oil sticks, and I've used them on a few of my watercolors just to see if I could use them on watercolor paper. And I will link that video for you below if you want to check that one out if you're not familiar with oil sticks at all. They're oil, but they have that buttery texture, but because they're in a stick form, they give you a little bit more control, but they also give you a lot more freedom, if that makes sense. So as I worked, I found myself kind of drawn deeper into different colors, brighter highlights, bringing out a little bit more movement and emotion in the piece. And it was like I wasn't covering up the mistake below, but it turned out to be more creating something completely new. So the original print became my underpainting, which turned into another painting with the watercolor grounds, which gave me a new starting point to build on from that. So I started working with those shapes I initially had. But the best part was I wasn't afraid to experiment because I only spent $18 on the canvas itself because of the great sale. And so I just let it go. I let it paint freely. I added texture with palette knife. I wiped areas off. It was just very freeing because I knew I couldn't mess it up. It was only about discovering something new in this one. Here is the final transformation. This is the finished piece. And really compared to where I started, this feels so much more richer and more dynamic instead of like a pixelated pimple that was stretched way out of control. I now have, I don't know why I say that, it's so gross. I now have a full piece, and it's something I'm really excited about. It was really fun to work with the oil sticks. I think the entire process was kind of a reminder that sometimes our best work comes from those moments we don't plan. And I think I still might work on this one a little bit. It's right now it's drying up there. I might add some more details to it. I can get in with a smaller brush with oils if I want to add some more things to it. But since I treated this as an opportunity to experiment, I think it's just a really fun transformation that was, a real fun experiment to try. So what I would love to hear from you is, have you ever saved a painting that you thought was a lost cause? What is your go-to fix? Something that doesn't turn out like expected? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this transformation, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. And for more behind the scenes and art experiments, if you want to go deeper into my creative process, please check out my Patreon, where I'm showing the full video of this one, and I have some exclusive lessons in real time, plus some paint-alongs. All right, you can see it hanging up there. It's drying. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Make sure you click subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye. And if you're looking for another art rescue story, check out this video next.